Good morning and welcome back to the channel. I hope that everybody is doing well today. So yesterday was the arraignment of Lindsay Clancy and they televised it. It was live and I made sure to watch it because I've just been so heavily invested in this case, weighing very heavily on me. As you may have seen, I made a video almost a week ago on what we knew about the case, and after the arraignment, a lot more details came out, and honestly, it was just really hard to listen to, but I did want to make a follow-up video because I got a lot of feedback on that last video, and it sounds like this is something that's weighing heavily on a lot of other, particularly, women, mothers, their minds as well. So at the time when the story broke, all we really knew was that Lindsay Clancy was a mother and a nurse, and she allegedly had strangled her 3 children, 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, and 8-month-old Kaylin. We didn't know much more than that. There was a lot of discussion regarding postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis, but again, a lot of it was speculation. In my first video, I took the opportunity to discuss postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis, and I do think that it is such an important discussion to have, and I do think in the midst of this terrible tragedy, obviously we will never be able to bring these babies back, but if we can bring awareness surrounding mental health and women, and specifically childbearing and postpartum period, I think if we can at least raise awareness with that, then there is, I don't even want to say something positive that came out of this, because we could have done this without sacrificing their life, but it happened, and I think it is important that we talk about it. So like I said, a lot of details came out in that arraignment, and I think what I've seen on social media is that people are really kind of taking a step back from their original stance. When the story first broke, there was a hashtag I stand with Lindsay, and a lot of people were really rallying around her and sharing their own stories of postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis. And after this arraignment, it seems like there's a lot more discussion now, not attributing this, I guess, to postpartum psychosis, and saying instead that it was just cold-blooded, evil, premeditated murder. And so I just really want to make a follow-up video, and I want to get on here and talk about it. And so the way that this video is going to work is that I will present to you information with the case and what we learned from the arraignment, and then I'm going to talk about my opinion in regards to postpartum psychosis and what I think regarding the case. But before I do get into today's video, if you are new here, then hi, welcome. My name is Brittany. I am a nurse practitioner. Much of what I do here on my channel is educational. If you are a returning friend, then welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It is a free way to help me out, and it really helps me to just continue making content on here, so I do appreciate it. We are going to talk about the case though going forward, like I said, and so I also want to put in a trigger warning that the evidence, it's very upsetting. It can be very triggering to hear, and if you want to not hear of the details of this case, then go ahead and skip to the time that's on the screen now, where I just talked to you about my opinion regarding what's going on. Yesterday, Tuesday, February 7th, Lindsay Clancy was arraigned from her hospital bed at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it was live for everybody to watch. We heard from both the prosecuting attorney and then the defense as well. Both presented their sides, and honestly, both did, I think, a really good job. I watched the whole thing. Honestly, it was really heart-wrenching to listen to, but I wanted to hear all of the details. So like I said, a lot of the discussion has been regarding postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. And that was definitely a topic of discussion from Lindsay's defense attorney in the arraignment as well. But also he really focused on the medications that Lindsay was taking, and that she was over-medicated. And because she was over-medicated, that she could not be held legally responsible for what she had done, that being murdering her children. He listed medications like Prozac, Seroquel, Trazodone, amitriptyline, Remeron. He listed so many medications and attributed her psychosis and her ultimately killing of her children to being over-medicated. In contrast to that, however, during the arraignment, the prosecutor clarified that at the time of the killing, Lindsay was actually only on 3 medications, and that during the months prior to the event, leading up to the crime, she was sort of journaling her thoughts. She was using journals at home. She was also using her cell phone to write down her thoughts, her experience with the different medications that she was trying, starting new medications, weaning off medications that weren't working. And she was sort of documenting this for months prior to the event. And it's actually said that the day before the event, she had wrote in her phone that she was having a touch of postpartum anxiety. All right, so let's discuss the timeline of events, because I think that this gives us a lot of useful information. So on Tuesday, January 24th, Lindsay Clancy seemingly had a normal day. She took one of her children to a pediatrician appointment in the morning. She played with both Cora and Dawson outside in the snow. They built snowmen. They took pictures. They sent them to her husband and her mother. And it really seemed like Lindsay was having a good day. As we know, though, Lindsay's husband, Patrick Clancy, was working from home at the time, allegedly to be more of support to Lindsay as she was having these mental health problems. And so this is the timeline of events that we know. On January 24th, 4:02 p.m., Lindsay searched Kids Miralax on her cell phone. At 4:13 p.m., Lindsay searched Takeout 3V on her cell phone, a restaurant that she was looking up for food. She then used Apple Maps to determine the time it would take for someone to travel from her home to the restaurant, which was in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Remember, they are living in Duxbury, Massachusetts. At 4:47 p.m., Lindsay searched the CVS website and called the CVS, spoke with the manager, and asked if they had children's Miralax in stock. At 4:53 p.m., Lindsay texts her husband, who was, again, like I said, working in the basement, asked if he would pick up takeout from 3V restaurant, saying that she had not been able to cook anything that day. It had been a long day. At 5:10 p.m., Lindsay called 3V restaurant. She ordered the food, gave Patrick's name for a pickup, and at 5:15 p.m., Lindsay texted the words Pedialax liquid stool softener to her husband to ensure that he would pick up the right medication while at CVS. At 5:32 p.m., there's surveillance video showing Patrick at the CVS. At 5:33 p.m., Patrick calls Lindsay. However, that call goes unanswered. At 5:34 p.m., Lindsay calls Patrick back. The call only lasted 14 seconds, where Patrick confirmed what medication to get. It was later stated that Patrick said she sounded normal on the phone at this time. However, it sounded like she was busy doing something. And that, to me, honestly, just that gave me chills. Yeah, I don't know. Just the thought of what was occurring at that time, and the husband, just no idea that his life was, I can't. At 5:54 p.m., Patrick arrived at the 3V restaurant, picked up the food for his family, and then headed back home to his house in Duxbury. At 6:09 p.m., Patrick arrived home, noticed that it was silent. And anyone with small children knows that the house is never quiet. Unless they're sleeping, it's typically pretty loud and rambunctious. He noticed silence. To me, I mean, that's alarming. I'm sure for what he was expecting to walk into with 3 kids wide awake, his wife coming home to bring dinner. I'm sure he was expecting to meet the commotion of his family, and that silence, I wonder if he just knew something had happened. So Patrick began calling for his wife, and she didn't answer. He ran upstairs. The bedroom door was locked. He was able to get in. However, he saw blood on the floor, an open window, ran downstairs and found Lindsay on the ground outside of the home. She apparently had cuts on her wrists and her neck, and he had asked her what she had done, and she responded that she had tried to kill herself by jumping out of the window. Patrick Clancy then, of course, called 911, and once the first responders arrived, he went to find the children. He asked Lindsay where the children were. She said the basement. So he went running for his kids. He is still actually on the phone, and so they have the audio recording of him still on that 911 call, and he's heard yelling out, "Guys," as if expecting to maybe hear them respond, that they were maybe just put down there safely as she was going to end her own life. But he, of course, didn't hear them call back. And shortly after that, the audio would then pick him up screaming in agony as he found all 3 of his children with exercise bands still tied around their neck. Patrick removed the exercise bands and tried to will the children to breathe, and it's something that we don't even want to believe could exist in this world. Everyone was part of that, what they went through, I can't. So the first responders rushed, of course, all 3 of the children off to the hospital. And from there, we know what happened. We know that unfortunately, all 3 of the children did pass away. And I really just want to take a moment to reflect on the children, Cora, Dawson, and Kaylin, all 3 of these beautiful babies that had their lives stolen from them. And I think that it's really important that we just take a moment to think of them. What we know now of Lindsay's condition is that she is still in the hospital currently. She did suffer fractures to her spine and her ribs. She is reportedly paralyzed. From what little we could see of Lindsay on Zoom from her arraignment, we did see her use her arms a couple times. She's seen almost looking like she's adjusting her mask. I don't know, some people said she was wiping tears. I did not see any real emotion. It is unfortunate, I think, that she had to be wearing the mask. I get it, she's in the hospital, but it really limited what we could see as far as any kind of emotional response to what she was hearing with the arraignment. What we could see were her eyes, and they looked very, very stoic. Just very, very blank stare, emotionless. I think what a lot of us were expecting was to see Lindsay, crying, appearing remorseful, appearing psychotic. We weren't expecting just blank stare, no emotion Lindsay. I think that really took people aback. I wonder if, she's on new medications, if she's very heavily medicated, and that's what we're seeing, a very medicated Lindsay. If she is in some sort of shock, if the mask has finally come down from really how severe her mental illness is. Because the picture that we get from the days leading up to the event is not what we see on camera with Lindsay. The pictures we see on her Facebook and her social media did not match what we saw in that hospital bed. And I think it was just kind of shocking, the lack of emotion. And you wonder, is there some sort of lack of understanding of the severity? But it was reported that while she was temporarily intubated in the hospital, she was given a whiteboard to write, as we see sometimes, a whiteboard to write any questions. And allegedly, one of the first questions that she wrote was, do I need an attorney? And so to me, that really tells us that there is a level of understanding and awareness surrounding the situation. And so it's not, it's hard as a mom too, right? To really kind of separate, but it's hard to understand. So like I said, when this case broke, a lot of the discussion was really around postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. But it seems since the arraignment, the theme of discussion has really changed. And a lot of what I'm seeing now are people saying evil, premeditated, murderer. And honestly, to me, that makes sense. I get it. They don't paint a narrative of a person that was psychotic. She seemed very lucid in the events leading up to when she did the murder. The pediatrician, her husband, her mother, the CVS manager, all of these people spoke to her. The husband even spoke to her likely when she was actually committing the crime on the phone, and nothing sounded out of the ordinary. And that doesn't match when we think postpartum psychosis. We're expecting much more delirious, not functioning, not seeming normal. And then of course there is the search history on her phone where she is searching the restaurant and how long it would take to get there, and the CVS. And it could all mean nothing, but in light of what we know with the crime, it sounds suspicious. Like potentially she was planning to do what she was going to do with her children, and this was her plan. I mean, she is the one that sent her husband out on these errands while she was home alone with these children and killed them. She is the one that sent him away to be alone with the children. And so it makes perfect sense why so many people now are kind of changing their tune from postpartum psychosis to premeditated murderer. But now I'm going to read a sentence from Up to Date regarding postpartum psychosis, and I think it's important to hear. So it reads, episodes of postpartum psychosis can be severe and prolonged. And then it goes on to say, women experiencing first episode postpartum psychosis appear to have a high risk of reoccurrence outside of the postpartum time period. A systematic review was done of 645 patients experiencing their first episode of postpartum psychosis, of which 366 of those experienced at least one or more episodes of psychosis outside of that postpartum period. So I think it's important there to understand how long postpartum psychosis can go on for and how you can have recurrent events. Postpartum psychosis has also shown to be highly associated with bipolar disorder, and they can present with depression, with mania, or some sort of mixed state. And so I wonder if maybe Lindsay Clancy had undiagnosed bipolar disorder, or if this was an isolated psychosis incident, in which that can occur too. It's not always related to bipolar, but there is a high association. So the question is, with the information that we have now, do I think that this was postpartum psychosis? And I think it's still possible. I do think that that is very still possible. She had just, Callan was only 8 months old. She's still within that postpartum period. And I think we still have a lot more details to learn. Any way you spin it, I think mental health was obviously a component. Now here's where I'm going to really kind of share my opinion, and I think it might not be extremely popular. Maybe it will be, I don't know, because now with how things have changed, I'm always interested to hear, and I don't want this to be divisive at all. I think it's just an important discussion, and it's something that I'm interested in talking about. But okay, anyway. So my opinion is that yes, I do think that mental health was a component. It typically is. Anyone that is able to do this type of heinous crime, the crime that she committed, I think, in my opinion, is the worst of the worst crimes that you could ever commit. Truly a heinous crime. There is definitely a mental health component. She is not mentally well. You cannot be mentally well and make those life choices. A lot of the notorious serial killers that we all know of had documented mental health disorders. Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, all of these notable criminals, murderers, had documented mental health disorders. And I think Lindsay is no different. I think she definitely has a mental health disorder, multiple likely mental health disorders. They were not able to treat her appropriately. That's a whole other video. I'd be interested in making a whole other video just talking about like the medications that they say she was on once we know more and it's confirmed. That's just how I feel. I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Again, I don't want it to be divisive at all, so please keep it kind in the comments. Not that anyone's ever been unkind. I hope that it's able to be just a conversation that is kind, I guess. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. My heart is just broken over these children. I'm definitely going to follow the case. I'm really interested in it. And I might make more videos regarding it because I think that it's been an interesting discussion to have. And like I said, a really, if nothing else, an opportunity for us to learn. So until next time, I wish you guys nothing but the best. Don't forget to learn something new every day, and I will talk to you guys soon. Okay, bye.